Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the December 13th, 2017 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We have a full agenda tonight. The first is a notice of intent from LEC Environmental Consultants for a project located at many sites along Lawrence Street, Perry Street, Rogers Street, Andover Street, Howe Street, and Fayette Street. This particular notice has, this particular applicant has asked for a continuance. So we will postpone this until the January 10th meeting. Oh, are you here for? Oh, no. No. The January 10th meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. So if anyone's here for, this is actually called the Concord River Greenway Project, Phase 3 or so. So that one is going to be continued. Next on our agenda is a notice of intent submitted by the Daily Group, Stedman Street, Lowell. The project, the DEP number is 206-772, and the project location is 205 Billerica Street. A notice of intent has been filed by the Daily Group for the construction of 3 single-family dwellings within 100 feet of the Concord River and bordering vegetated wetlands. Taking most of your desk, too.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Matt Hammer with Lamplex Engineering and Surveying, located at 10 George Street, Lowell. We're here this evening as the engineers and surveyors for this piece of property, which is triangular in shape, located at 205 Billerica Street. For the Daily Group. We're here as a notice of intent filing. I'm gonna walk you through the existing conditions, the wetlands, and the proposed development. So here's the lot here. Right now there's a single family dwelling and 2 garages on the property. There's a looped driveway coming through the parcel. And the property gently slopes to the rear of the property, approximately 6 feet in elevation difference from here down to the Concord River. We contracted with Norse Environmental, who's the wetland botanist. They located the bank flags and the bordering vegetative wetland flags to identify the resource areas which we have on this property, which are bordering vegetative wetlands. Those are shown with wetland flags, WF1A all the way down here to 9B. And we also have the riverfront itself, which is a very defined bank on the Concord River. There's also land underwater as a resource area, but we're not impacting that in any way. And that's essentially that area underneath the bordering land subject to flooding resource area. As you know, the riverfront area per the Wetlands Protection Act is 25 feet for the Concord River located in Lowell. That 20-foot riparian line is shown here. We also have a bordering land subject to flooding resource area, which is elevation 104. And that line is shown here with a line that says FEMA in the line itself. We also have a Lowell zoning ordinance 50-foot setback, which we're also showing on the plan, which is located here. And then we have a 100-foot buffer to the bordering lands, to the bordering vegetative wetland, which is shown here. I just have a simplified plan just to kind of outline the project itself. We had a hearing on Monday evening with the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals, in which they granted a special permit for these 3 residential dwellings on the parcel. They also granted a variance to the front setback. And that was on Monday evening, and that was a unanimous vote. There were some conditions, I'm sure Patrick Burns will go over with you, but essentially it just requires that all the typical municipal departments have final review of the project before the project gets constructed. And we are going to be planting some street trees along Bill Ricker Street. So what we have is 3 single-family homes, an access drive, and then there'll be a driveway that'll provide access to the rear of the building, in which there'll be a garage and an area out in front of the garage for a parking space. And that, essentially, it's the same building mirrored over here, same thing. And then this is a garage coming in. So all the parking requirements are being facilitated on the property itself. There's going to be no structures in the 50-foot buffer, so we'll comply with the zoning ordinance in regard to the structure. There'll be no work in the bordering land subject to flooding resource area, so there's no resource area impacts, and we're outside of the 25-foot riparian. So there are no resource area impacts. The only impact for this project is doing work in the bordering, the 100-foot buffer to the bordering vegetative wetland. The project itself is going to be in full compliance with the stormwater management regulations to all the standards listed in the stormwater checklist. We're going to be providing a 22% decrease in post-development flow, again, towards the wetland. So none of this water is going to the road. We're going to be providing in excess of the groundwater recharge and the water quality volumes required, and I can go through those exact numbers with you if necessary. We've done soil testing within the infiltration system proposed, and we're providing a 2.5 foot vertical offset to the bottom of the infiltration system to seasonal high groundwater. So that's a 1/2 foot in excess of the 2 feet. We've had those soil tests conducted by a soil evaluator and witnessed by the Lowell Engineering Department. And essentially the way the drainage is going to work is that we're going to have water traveling through this swale that's going to go to a catch basin. And the nice thing about these oil water separators, now you can put the catch basin on top of the actual first chamber of the 3-chambered suspended solids removal tank, which is located here. And then that's going to go to a subsurface infiltration system. And that's shown here. Again, that's going to have a vertical offset from groundwater at 2.5 feet. For the flow that's coming in this direction, we're going to capture it in a trench drain. And we're going to put that over to a smaller infiltration system here. The water in the sewer is going to come through an easement on the side of the property here. And it's going to tie in down on Bill Ricker Street in this location here. We're showing an erosion and sedimentation control barrier here. And there'll be some minor tree clearing in this section. Most of the property is exposed right now. I will tell you that we did some soil tests and we did find some bottles. So we have varying depths of bottles on the property, ranging from anywhere from 3 to 5 feet in depth. So a lot of those bottles are going to now be removed and properly disposed of. So the actual ground beneath this project is going to get cleaned.
Like glass bottles?
Glass bottles, glass, yeah. Underneath those glass bottles was a nice sandy material. All right, so we get a nice, it shows up as a B soil, as a hydrologic soil group, but it's actually more functioning as an A soil. Taking the bottles out, obviously. And I can open it up to the board for any questions. There's been a full stormwater report done with an operation and maintenance plan and long-term preventative maintenance. And this this development will be a condominium complex. So there'll be a homeowners association to maintain the drainage systems and to do the yearly preventative maintenance with cleaning out the oil water separator tank of any debris. You can open up to the board.
You said something about drainage going to the Concord. Is that
All the existing drainage.
is that surface?
That's surface. There's going to be no drainage from our project going into the Concord other than water that'll travel through the sandy substrate once it gets to the sand, because this whole area is very sandy.
Now, what are you capturing as far as drainage? Did you say roof drains?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah. I should say all of the impervious surfaces are going to be infiltrated. Some of this area back in here that'll be landscaped, that'll just travel overland.
I don't think we have a landscaping plan here, do we?
We didn't prepare an individual landscaping plan. When we were at the Zoning Board of Appeals, we did agree to putting in 3 street trees. And there will be landscaping around the houses. I don't know if you know of the work that the Daily Group does in the city, but they will be landscaping the property. They do a really nice job. But the homeowners are not going to be able to go out and start planting things outside the buildings. So that'll all be maintained within the association.
So are these going to be, these aren't going to be owned by separate families?
The condos will be, yes. But the outside land, like the landscaped areas, will not be able to be modified by the individual condo owners.
Well, I think probably a concern of ours would be that your third building in the rear backs right up to our 50-foot buffer, which we generally call a no disturb zone. So that basically leaves that house with no backyard to essentially, I mean, you haven't submitted a landscape plan that says that you want to clear some of that brush or anything like that, which we would have to look at tree by tree.
Well, I'm doing that now. I'm providing this area here where this proposed tree line is as the limit of clearing. Everything else is going to be lawn, and we're not proposing any landscaping other than grass.
So your trees are going right up to that rear deck then?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not suggesting that all the trees out there are beautiful specimens that need to be kept, but
No, they're not.
anything that were to be done in that 50-foot area would require approval from this commission.
Well, we're not going to be disturbing anything in the 50-foot.
Okay, well, I don't see how you can actually work on that house without disturbing some of it, because the back corner is right on the 50-foot line.
The zoning ordinance says that if you're within 50 foot for a structure, that you just need to get approval from the Conservation Commission. It's not a no-build zoning ordinance.
Well,
And if we do work within that 50 foot, which we are proposing with this hay bale line, right, then that does go through the commission, but it's not a no disturb 50 foot.
that, you're referring to the zoning code, but we have a wetlands bylaw.
Right.
It definitely says that that's 50 foot is a no disturb zone that needs permission.
Right, so we're here tonight for this notice of intent to get permission to do a little bit of work that's gonna be necessary that's identified by this erosion line. There's no trees in here.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to define that line.
Okay.
Is what I'm doing. And if you say that it's the erosion control line,
Yep,
and that, you know, if that's put in first and is something that can be seen and kept in place, then, you know, we can agree that that's the line.
yeah, and at the time when that line goes in, you know, we can meet with the commission and look at the individual trees to see if there's any trees that are worth saving within that line, if that's what you're,
Well, I'm
if
not
that's
sure
where you're going.
that you'd want trees that close to the house if they aren't chosen trees that are
Yeah,
going
no.
to fit into the landscape.
Right.
No, I was just trying to get a consensus here that that is a place that we don't want disturbed once that line is set. Unless you come in and say, I've got 3 dead trees in this area that.
Yeah, we come in and ask to take those out, right.
I'm going to defer to our stormwater people on either side of me to ask some questions
You go
about that.
first.
Would you
You
like to go?
Go ahead, Bill.
I noticed that the 50-foot buffer also seems to intersect with the FEMA 100-year floodplain and that back property. If I'm reading it correctly?
Back here?
Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously, I think what you were telling us is that that's all going to be common area and no individual homeowner is going to be able to,
Right.
you know, put an in-ground pool out there or,
Right.
you know, fencing or do an addition, you know, is that gonna be kind of recorded in, like?
Yes,
deed?
so how this will work is there'll be what I would call an exclusive use condo plan.
Yep,
And what we typically do is, you know, the individual condo owners are allowed to obviously do whatever they want in their driveways,
right,
their walkways. But then typically, we wouldn't allow them to use this area to do any altering of any kind, but they could walk on it. All the condo units can walk on it.
right.
But so we identify exclusively used areas. We would attach the permits and reference the permits to the master deed.
Yep.
And then we would go about it that way.
Right. I mean, I could certainly see low-impact activity, people walking out around there, I mean, but is there any plan to have like a permanent marker out there to kind of designate where, you know, the 50-foot no disturb?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because I would think that would be, you know, it's very easy years later for someone to decide to, you know, go to their other condo owners and ask, you know, for their permission to make an addition or some sort of alteration. And, you know, to Commissioner Varnum's point, I don't think we want any activity going beyond, you know.
Put it this way, someone can walk out of their house and look out at their.
True.
So,
We can't hear what he's saying back here.
so someone can go and jump in the river if they want, but they won't be able to do any altering activities
Right.
Beyond what's identified on the exclusive use plan.
Right, okay.
But we will definitely put those
Put in a
markers
marker.
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think I heard you say, with respect to stormwater management, 22% reduction, and I would presume that'd be what, sheet flow from, you know, from the site, from the pervious areas?
Yeah, that's peak flow.
Okay,
That's at the 10 and the 100-year storm. And the
Right.
drainage system is designed for the 100.
okay. And it's all going, it's infiltration versus being shunted to a outfall pipe?
That's correct.
Okay. I have nothing further at this point, thanks.
It seems like there's a lot of people here that aren't happy with this, but I have to say that I do think that you guys designed this very properly with the Conservation Commission in mind. You guys are outside the 100-foot buffer. You're basically outside the 50-foot no-build besides a very small square footage of a driveway, which doesn't concern me, and you're outside the 25 river foot. So, and then you nailed it with a 22% decrease. So just to echo Bill's comment of Commissioner Varnum's concern, maybe add some potential signs, and I don't know if it's possible to, if there is gonna be a condo association, maybe add some sort of wordage in the deed or something that, you know, although you can't alter the landscape, you also can't alter the, you know, the 50-foot buffer zone or no-build zone.
What I can say is that I'm doing a project up on Talbot Square. We had a meeting this morning, and essentially DPD reviews the easement documents in the master deed documents prior to them being recorded, so that they all coincide with the permitting that's associated with a condo complex. So, yeah.
Yeah, but this is designed with our resource areas in mind, so good job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good, I don't think we have too much, do we have too much detail on the, is that an infiltration system in the driveway there?
Yes, we do.
Is that on here? All right.
You know, one thing I forgot to add is we didn't have any comments from DEP, which was a nice, pleasant surprise. So,
Okay, I think we've seen this type before.
Yeah.
You said the catch basin's in the middle of the driveway, right?
detail of the storm tech system that would facilitate the drainage. We have a full detail of the oil water separator with the catch basin mounted on the top. It goes through 3 chambers. And then there are other utility details, we have if for some reason the roof drain was not functioning, there's an emergency overflow pipe that comes off the top, so they know that something's wrong. And then the whole system can get flushed out and cleaned.
I had one more, what did you guys need a special permit for?
So the zoning ordinance requires that we obtain a special permit for constructing up to 3 single-family homes in an SMF district at 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit. So we have 35,000 square feet, so we're allowed 3.
Yeah.
And then you also go through site plan review for that as well.
Evan?
I heard you say something about a sewer drain over to the right of it that will be.
Yep, right here.
So there's no sewage in the house that's there right now? No drains coming from that? This would be like a completely new?
Yes, a completely new service.
And I heard you say there'll be minimal tree cutting?
That's correct.
Do you know how many trees will be cut?
The number, I don't.
And you said, so you're gonna be planting some street trees? You said about 3?
3, yes, that's
You think
what
that'll
was
be-
agreed upon.
Almost equal from what you're cutting down?
No.
No. Okay. I have no further questions.
If you go out to the site, I don't know if you're by the site, it's mostly shrubs and a few trees. But the trees nonetheless. But I can say that, the area will be, the site will be maintained.
Kevin, one of the sheets on the package, there's like 1 tree line and 2 tree lines. You can see existing and proposed.
I have a couple of comments about the erosion controls. I see that you're proposing 6-inch straw wattles.
Yes.
I don't really believe those are adequate for this project. I was going through the soil evaluation data. It looked like there's a lot of fine sediments out there. I think something more along the lines of a silt sock in a 12-inch diameter would be more appropriate. And to that effect, it seems there's going to be a lot of soil coming out of the site when the foundations are dug for the basements, and I don't see any proposed soil stockpile locations, and I don't really see much room on the site where those stockpile locations could go. Have you thought any about that at all?
Yeah, we'll probably start off with this building here first. So we'll have smaller stockpile areas behind that in this location here, as far away from, outside of the 100-foot buffer. All the stockpiles will be outside of the 100-foot buffer. And a lot of the materials are just going to be excavated and removed off-site. So I don't think you're going to see large piles of material that are going to, potentially erode and potentially adversely affect the wetlands. Because this is all vegetated here too, so it's not like we're right up against a wetland where if there was a steep slope or a large rain event that the wetlands would be affected by that stockpiling.
Did you say that you had done, I know you have tested what kind of soils are there, but have you tested the soil? You mentioned bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's under there, or the extent
There's
of?
bottles and some coal ash, some of it's contaminated, I'm sure. So it's going to have to all be properly disposed per the Massachusetts contingency plan and regulated by an on-site licensed site professional.
You don't know the extent of it yet, or how much will have to be removed?
We have an approximate idea how much we're going to be removing. We're thinking that it could be as much as 1,000 cubic yards.
1,000, is that what you said?
1,000, yeah.
Because we did have a site further down Billerica Street that
Yeah, I heard.
was a problem years ago with the, they actually had to cap it.
This material is not what that material is. We know that. We've retained the service.
We'll have a chance to give your comments as soon as the board is done.
So we've retained the services of Mill City Environmental. They've gone in and done some soil testing and feel as though the soil is manageable. There is going to be some expense to removing the soils, but it's not like we don't know what's in the soil. So it's been evaluated, it's been assessed, and we know approximately the volumes being removed off the site.
It would appear that probably from one location to the next location 10 feet away might be different materials, though, if it was in fact a dump site in years past.
Yeah, we did 3 soil tests across the site here,
How deep?
8 to 10 feet.
Okay.
Those soil logs are here.
Was it like a boring or was it like a patch?
No, full,
Soil core? Like a core, soil core?
no, we did full excavation.
Yeah, full, so like a foot by foot or even bigger?
No, it was 5 feet by 10 feet.
Fabulous.
And do you have any analytical data on
I
the stuff?
do not.
No, okay. But you've retained an LSP, and at this point, they opened up a spill number for the site, or?
No, it wasn't a reportable amount.
Right. It's probably deemed to be historic fill.
Yeah, I can't tell you any details on that, but we do know that we're going to be removing that material.
Do you have, oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Do you have a memo or like a report from Mill City?
I do not,
Okay.
so. But all the work that's going to be done on this will go through Sarah Brown and be facilitated through DPD with all the work related to anything that has to do with any contamination.
What is the protocol of that? Do they test samples from every day, or how does that done
They
to
test the
decide whether
soils
or
to-
not it's?
They test the soils, determine what's in the material within the soil, and then they determine a remediation action plan in order to determine what receiving facility would receive those materials. And that's done in conjunction with the city's environmental engineer.
Yeah, I think we probably would be interested in maintaining the current elevations, so if you're taking out soil, that the elevations be maintained if new soil were brought in.
Yeah, so we have a full grading plan here. So our proposed grades in here are at 106.5. The existing grades are approximately at 106. So we'll be scraping out the loam, whatever unsuitable materials there, and bringing them up, not that much higher than what's existing grade there now. No more than a foot above the existing grade would be the proposed grade.
Are there any more questions from the board at this time? You can have a chance later. At this point, we can open the hearing up to those who'd like to speak, either for or against, or just make a general comment on this particular project. We are constrained to just wetland issues. We can't regulate traffic. We can't regulate things that don't concern wetlands and floodplain, things of that sort. So if you would just introduce yourself and give your address?
Okay, hi, Denise Roy, 7 Clifton Street, across the street from the project. And I want to just start with saying that we are appealing the zoning, so that shouldn't be a factor here, because we were not notified, we were notified 3 hours before the meeting. Yes, not happy. First observation is, or I'll say is, I was involved in the coalition for 93 Billerica Street. So
I was also on the board at that time.
Good. So you know what we went through.
Uh-huh.
And I'm
I was-
seeing the same shortcuts as I saw back then. We ended up having to do the borings down 20 feet. And you know what we found? And you know the result. We ended up tearing those houses down. And I've lived there for, well, I don't live there currently, I'm the trustee now, it was my family home, and my brother lives there now. My father built the house that's on there right now. We saw what came out of the ground when they put the foundation in. And it's not just bottles and glass. So,
What is it for us newer commissioners? What came out of the ground?
cyanide.
This is the house at 205, is it? The one that they're tearing down? Is that the one you,
Yes.
Yeah.
205 Billerica Street,
What you're saying at 93 Billerica Street, there was cyanide?
yes. And other contaminants there. It was totally hazardous.
I was surprised to see there's no fence there anymore.
I know, I am too. Seems people tend to forget until someone gets really hurt. A couple of things with the project. The wetlands concerns me. I know the gentleman said that they were going to put up or notify the owners that they cannot use or alter the wetlands behind the building. I don't see that as being possible. If you're going to tell me no one's going to be mowing and cleaning that area, especially with mosquito contaminations that we have along the river, that's a big concern. And if they start doing that, then they're altering the wildlife, the vegetation that's along the river. Storm damage control with the water in the wetlands, we're concerned about that. We all get flooded out. The maps of the flooding does not at all accurately identify the flooding that we have in that area. That land is flooded from the driveway, well, actually from the river all the way to the driveway and sometimes to the stairs in front of that house. Our property is also. If we start altering the ground levels and the saturation of the soils, we're going to be flooded even more. And it's not just my house, it's all my neighbors' houses. We're all very concerned about that, especially when the driveway is going to be coming right down into our opening of our house. Yeah, digging and altering, okay. The grading on the plans that we got, and I reviewed them with the Wilmington Conservation, and there doesn't seem to be grading elevation around the house or houses. And I couldn't see it on there, and she couldn't see it either, so we were a little concerned over that. When I'm looking at the flood lines for the FEMA 100-year, to me, the first house and the setback house are going to interfere with that. And I don't see how it's not going to with them digging and putting in the foundations. Again, the concern is, my mother died of ovarian cancer, my grandmother. My sister has MS. House next to us had MS, cancer. House to the right of us, cancer. House behind me, cancer. So I know there's something in the ground. None of us can afford to have all these tests done, but if somebody starts going in there and stirring all this up again, we don't know what's going to come out of that ground. But I can tell you it's not just bottles and cans. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Give your name, please.
Good evening. My name is Ray Goyette. I currently reside at 7 Clifton Street and have so for 46 years. I was born in the house. If anybody needs any questions on what the soil is, what's in there, I've lived around my life. I know the water patterns. They're talking about drainage. The land is sloped to the river. Anything they do is going to run right to the river. It's automatically sloped to the river. The water comes up across the street many, many times, flooding out our yards, our basements. I can't see how they're going to correct that. The house that's presently on 205 Barica Street right now has about a 3.5-foot depth into the ground basement, and it fills. And that land is elevated off the street a good 4 to 5 feet. And I believe they were talking about the land is mostly sand. I've lived there all my life. Some people better do some more perk tests. I live right there, watched where they did the test. They're lucky if they went down 4 feet. I was standing right there with the building inspector with the Lowell environment, and I looked in the holes. There was quite a few other people there too, as they were pulling the garbage out of the holes and collecting the bottles and cans, and I don't feel disturbing that is gonna run off into the water. There is a brook that is adjacent to the property. At the far end of the river, there is a brook that runs down in, across Billerica Street, down along Acton and Bolton Street, crosses Woburn Street, and heads off down into, I believe it's almost to the 495 highway. Now, any drainage that comes off that property will definitely enter that brook. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Anyone wish to speak?
Good evening. My name's Dan Goyette. I live at 35 Clifton Street, which is like 4 houses up from the development you're talking about. The concern is the groundwater. When it rains heavy, we all get flooded out. I'm just going to echo everything that was said here. It's the groundwater problem. You know, I don't know how that's going to be corrected. You're in a wet zone, a wetland. You know, you got rivers and brooks all around there, so correcting that's not going to be easy. And any changes could very well affect us even more. So what happens if that is the case? What grounds do we have after the fact, if this is approved? Are there any? I'm asking, are there any recourse that we have if this project goes through and we come to find out that we're in worse shape than we were before? Do we have any right to go to Mr. Daly and, you know?
Yeah, we need. Well, yeah, I have a question for all of you. Would you be opposed to the site being cleaned up and then also 22% of that flooding being removed? Because that's what they're proposing.
What about disturbing though? Disturbing what's there?
But that's a temporary.
You're taking the soil that's capturing water out and replacing it with cement.
No.
No.
No,
No,
that's-
that's not what they're
No.
proposing, no.
The whole stormwater management plan articulates how they're gonna manage stormwater and not have any net increase of stormwater leaving the property, entering into the storm system. What they're doing is they're infiltrating the stormwater on site with a 22% reduction in sheet flow. You know, as you've indicated, the pitch of the surface water is already towards the river. You know, what they're doing is rather than having continual sheet flow, is they're gonna have that catch basin in the middle of the driveway. It's gonna allow the water to percolate into the ground slowly,
including all the runoff from the buildings.
If it's gonna percolate into the ground slowly and the ground is totally saturated, where do you think the water's gonna go?
But what do you think happens on open land right across the street right now that's already grass? But that's, But that's something outside of our purview.
Excuse me, I think this is not something that people can follow here, to have people shouting back and forth. If you do want to say something, please come to the microphone.
But I would say is, we're obligated to make sure that what they're proposing follows the stormwater management plan.
Ralph Bannister, 37 Bolton Street. It doesn't go through the walls. First year I lived in my house, there was a lolly column in the cellar that I wanted to move. I pulled it out of the floor. I got a river this far under my house. Every spring I get a foot of water in my house. The pumps can't keep up with it, and it doesn't go through the walls. It comes up through the floor. You got a river running underneath everybody's house out there. All we're saying is this guy disturbs all that, this goes in there and starts disturbing all this. This is right next, you should see the end of Billerica Street, the corner of Billerica Street in the springtime. It's under this much water. That whole corner of Billerica Street is under a foot of water every spring. Right at Ray's house, it's under a foot of water. You think them putting in those houses is gonna make it any better? It's gonna make it worse. Thank you.
If I could ask Mr. Hammer, have you done any perk tests out there?
Yeah, we've determined the percolation rate in the sand is greater than 2 minutes an inch.
And how far down did you investigate
That's
that?
the,
Where did you strike groundwater? You made some holes out there. At what point do you hit groundwater?
groundwater is consistently at 90, elevation 98.5. Like I said, there were varying amounts of depth to the sand depending on, the bottles that we discovered. But the sand layer was from 66 to 108. In this location here, and then it, varies from 30 inches to 108 in test pit 2, which is located here. And then over here, the sand was 48 to 112 inches.
Could you, for the benefit of the audience, from surface to depth to water, if we're taking that elevation, how many feet from surface to depth are we talking?
It's approximately 84 inches, so that's 6 feet, 7 feet.
So about 7 feet?
Below
And
the
then,
surface. That's seasonal high.
I was gonna ask, that's
So-
seasonal, that's during the,
Yeah, so we had standing water, so.
When were those pits done?
Those pits were done on October 10th. But again, the seasonal high groundwater is based on the modeling layer. Okay, so there's a defined modeled layer within the soils that determines the seasonal high groundwater of the soils, and that's a geological condition. And then,
So we have been suffering from a fairly severe drought the last couple of years.
not this year though.
it ended in May.
This
it got
year,
better.
the rivers were fairly high most of the year. And then you have the river is approximately 99. So, in this area over in here, and then it drops down. So it's about the elevation of the river is the seasonal high right now.
So the proposal is for full basements on these houses?
That's correct. So we're
what
gonna
would
have
be
the
the
basement
At what depth?
2
What
feet,
depth would
2
that-
feet above that seasonal high.
2 feet above the 98.5.
Yeah, so our basement here is 100.5,
Yeah.
so we're 2
So-
feet above.
So are these houses somewhat elevated from what a normal house would be?
No, not particularly. I mean, you're gonna have 2, maybe 3 feet of foundation showing, but that's normal. let's put it this way. We were making sure we weren't grading in the 100-year flood. So it doesn't bother us if we're 2 or 3 feet above the ground with a foundation. We can bring the siding down a little bit for aesthetic reasons. But we're designing this entire project around the test pit data.
Let me ask about the driveway, since one of the speakers here lived directly across the street. Is that going to, is there going to be, I see where your catch basin is, but is there also going to be surface flow coming down that driveway towards the street?
It's going to get picked up by this trench drain.
And where does the trench
And
drain go?
that's across the entire driveway, and that'll get piped over to an infiltration system right here.
Okay. So that should answer your question about flooding coming down the driveway towards your property.
How much pitch is gonna come down towards my house?
Pitch?
Well, the
It
water's gonna run
looks
one
like
way.
it drops about 3 feet, but
That's quite a bit, isn't it?
looks like there's a drain at the foot of
Top.
the driveway.
Not at the bottom.
There is one at the bottom, there's one at the top and the bottom.
2 drains. Okay.
Yep.
I've lived there, like I said again, pretty much all my life. If you're gonna trust somebody's word about what they're saying is there, like this sand they're talking about, I watched them dig it out. It's not sand. It's not sand. So if you're gonna take his word for everything, this is totally ridiculous. He does not live there. He went in and did an inspectional report. He did it in the dry time of the season. If our yards are full across the street, our basements are full, and they get 3 to 4 feet from the street to the basement of the house that's there now, and they're saying basically that's where they're gonna be, does that make any sense?
I have a question. Since you said you've lived there for a long time.
Yep.
Do you have any old pictures of flooding at certain times?
I'd have to dig them up.
I'd like to see those, to see if they differ from the 100 flood zone.
It comes across the street. They block the street off with horses. It comes into my garage. Our backyards are completely full of our cellars. We're pumping like crazy. The house across the street, which was owned by Erica McGill, I put the pumps in, pumped constantly, 3 pumps. And she's elevated up off the street. I don't understand, he's talking about, and I understand this is a job. I understand that everybody's out to make money on this. The developer, everybody's making money, and it's a job, that's fine. We live there. They're not doing us any favors. He's got a job, and that's fine, but they're not doing us any favors.
But can we go back to my other question? Like I said, what if the Daily Group cleans this up completely?
Clean
Will
the
that
dump
make you
up?
happy?
Did they clean the dump up down the street?
I don't know, we're talking about this property.
They didn't. So how are they gonna clean it?
No,
Take
but I'm
all,
saying if they, the Daily Group is a pretty reputable group in the city.
I know they've been on a neighborhood slamming houses in these little lots for a while now.
But I'm very confident that they built
That's your
stuff.
opinion. You don't live there, that's your opinion.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think that the Daily Group would be stupid enough to build 3 houses on a
It's a
contaminated
dump.
lot.
Okay.
Or a dump.
So I'll call Channel 5 and Channel 7, and let's get them in there. Let's inspect this property, because we don't want the same thing that's happened down the
I'm
street.
telling you right now, I don't think the Daily Group would build this, and someone buys this and sues the crap out of them.
Excuse me,
with
is it a
proof.
dump? Is it a dump? Was it a dump?
I don't think this should come down to personalities here.
It
Yeah,
was
I
a
don't
dump.
know.
As far as
So you're
who
telling me that
builds
they
it, we
wouldn't
need
build
to,
there if they knew it wasn't a dump? They know it's a dump.
excuse me, we need to focus on the property, not on who's gonna build it, who's gonna,
So
I
if they,
didn't
but
focus
if,
on the
From
Daily
it.
Group. She did, I did not.
I guess what I'm saying is, would you be happy if it was completely cleaned up?
We've heard that before. How are they gonna dig it all out? It's a dump. How deep does it go? How deep are they gonna dig?
I just don't
Okay.
think any, go ahead.
Let me explain how a site would get cleaned up. First, they've said they're retaining a licensed site professional. They make an observation that there's contaminated fill out there. They're gonna have, the LSP is obligated under the Massachusetts contingency plan to call into Mass DEP, who will issue what's called a release tracking number that will run with the property, while the Daily Group, as the property owner, will need to investigate the nature and extent of the contamination. What's in the soil, where's it going, what are the exposure pathways, who's exposed to it, and those exposures cause an unacceptable health risk. And if the answer is yes, then they're gonna have to come up with a cleanup plan to remediate that before they can do anything with that property.
Do you think myself and my family will be exposed to any of this?
I don't know.
Rainwater, through dust, through dirt, and them digging
Well,
in this?
if it's contaminated, I can tell you what's happened. They're gonna have a health and safety plan to do air monitoring, dust suppression. It's pretty typical protocol for
And it was pretty typical protocol down the end of the street when they had all this in plan, and they trucked the contaminated dirt out around the block and brought it back, okay? The city, find out what the city costs, what it cost them to take all those houses out, pay all the people. They sued the city, cancer, they had all deformities, everything. And what happened there? Didn't we have these things in play? They did soil tests, they knew it was contaminated. They did a soil test, they knew it was contaminated. Think about that for a minute. It's my family, not your family. You don't live there. These people don't live there. We live there as a community. We're looking out for ourselves because we have to.
Understood.
And I understand this is business, and I understand all that, but the city of Lowell has to take the people that live here and say, listen, we have a concern there. We're very concerned about this project.
Well,
Just a health reason, you know?
I think that, there's reason for concern.
Contaminating the water into the river, this is gonna go back, any drainage from that contaminated land will go into the river. It's gonna be disturbed. It's been sitting, I don't know how much it contaminates now, but to disturb it is not the answer.
Yeah, if you have something to say, please come to the microphone.
But again, if that was all
Thank-
done properly, if it was done properly and the drainage is
But
being.
it wasn't, and
But if
that's
it
what we're
is, if
saying.
it is this time,
Who's gonna monitor it?
the city, we will.
They didn't monitor it the last time.
Yeah, I don't know, I wasn't there, but maybe someone from this commission,
It wasn't done properly.
but I guess what I'm asking is,
You're Mr. Daly.
Okay, let's confine the conversation to one speaker at a time. Excuse me?
Hey, we can't have that.
I can't hear you, and you're not at the microphone, and this lady has the floor now.
Excuse me, my name is Barbara McGee. I live at 35 Denton Street, and I'm just concerned that we do have natural springs underneath everybody's property. I mean, what is that going, you're not going to tell me that's not going to be disturbed with all this cleaning up and stuff. Not only that, the gentleman over here that said that this year that the river was fairly high, no, it wasn't. That's bull. It was lower than normal. It was way under normal.
What
So
was
that
under
man is a
normal?
liar. The Concord River. Yes, the Concord River.
When the test pits were done, is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes. And I lived there for 53 years. That's how old I am. And we all know when the river is high or when it's low, and it was low. So you can't tell me it was high.
All right, let's speak to the board, not to,
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm speaking to everybody, him included.
okay, thank you. Is there anyone else, you had a comment, sir? Did you want to make a comment? Okay. I think some issues have been raised here. I had my, I must say that it's a nice, quiet neighborhood, but every time I hear Billerica Street, I think back to the troubles that they had years ago in the 90s or whenever it was with those other three houses. I'm sure Mr. Daly doesn't want that to occur on this particular lot, but at that time, they were just locating sites that had been filled with gasification waste, and we had them all over the city. We had some in Pawtucketville, we had some in, out in South Lowell, there were quite a few. I think that it's reason for concern, and I think that we don't have enough information at this time about the concern of the soils and pollution that might occur from disturbing those soils. I don't feel that there's been a whole lot of investigation of the soil conditions with 3 test pits, and we don't have a report on it. We don't know what was found. We don't know at what level it was found. I would like to see a soil profile of what's actually out there. I'd like to see a report of where the groundwater is on the areas. I know you've told me a number, but you know, how many, you know, does that represent one pit? And that's the number you came up with, or, and as the people say, it's variable at different times of year where that groundwater would be. The soil contamination should be of great concern to this board because of the river being right nearby, and hundreds and thousands of people live along that river and affected by anything that might contaminate the soils out there. I know disturbance of things is one thing they worry about with soil contamination. That's why we have so many former dump sites capped, so that water can't get in there and flow from that site to other sites. So, you know, I'm wondering if these are things that require some more investigation and perhaps a report back to the board on what's been found. You say you did hire a
Yes.
soil remediation company?
So I got to say that, you know, we've spent considerable amount of time retaining numerous professionals to provide all the data that's before the commission to show you that this project will not adversely affect the wetlands. We have not gotten into a situation that determined that there was a reportable discovery when we were doing our soil testing. It's funny, we provide all the data to the commission, and everyone's saying that there's all these things going on with the soils, that we didn't dig them deep enough, that we're liars, we're falsifying information.
I don't think anyone called you a liar. I'm sorry if they
The
did.
gentleman said the soil test was only 3 feet deep. All I'm saying is that when the time comes, when we do construction, a condition of the board should be on this approval that it all complies with the MCP, no matter what it is, because it will.
I tend to take residents' statements quite seriously.
Oh, I do too,
And,
Ms. Varnum, I do. But I got to tell you that we've had the city engineer out to the site.
This is actually the first time you've been to this board. You didn't actually come in here thinking that this would be the last time you'd be here, I don't think.
No, I'm just saying that a full-blown environmental study of the the soils for this property would be a reasonable requirement for this type of project. We're not even.
We've got a house that's sitting on our 50-foot no disturb zone, only 50 feet from the Concord River, a major river. You say there's sand under there. If there is contamination and there is sand, then perhaps it's flowing right through that sand, percolating nicely. And I think that's something that people would want to know.
David Daly from the Daly Group, 229 Stedman Street in Lowell, Mass. There's a lot I want to say tonight, and I want to first say saying that I've been developing in the city for over 25 years. I've also lived in South Lowell up until about 6 or 7 years ago. I've developed in South Lowell. I know the area really well. The neighbors do share some legitimate concerns about flooding in the area. I get that. What they don't understand is what we've been through a number of times, whether in this area of the city or any other part of the city or other towns that we develop in, is that we're gonna make that stormwater situation much better, right? We've already shown to the board that we're gonna make it a reduction of 22%. I do know in that area, I've seen it before, I lived right down the street. I lived on Barrow Street off Staveley for 15 years. I just sold a condo about a month ago. I know, I built up on Acton Street, they know it well, and in other areas in South Lowell. But the other thing we do know is I wouldn't put anyone else's life in jeopardy, as one of the gentlemen said about money. This isn't about money. This is about a project to better this area, which is currently encompassed by a shack and a garage that will bring tax revenue to the city, but also, should we proceed with this development, we would have to report any type of contamination and clean it up per their really stringent requirements, which I've heard every situation would happen down on the other end of Spurka Street. And as much as Mrs. Roy said that same shortcuts were going to be taken, the requirements now are absolutely, and they should be, because unfortunately back then, shortcuts were taken. This wouldn't happen in this front. We've already engaged in LSP well ahead of any of these issues coming up tonight. What I can say is we would never build this, and there's still a due diligence process going on. We're going to still understand the fact that what is exactly there. We've already had some initial soil testing, and to see what it would require to clean that up. Now, we're going to make this, at the end of the day, as Ms. Bedron pointed out, would you want a cleaner site with better drainage, or do you want a site that might be dirty, that might be contaminated the whole city? We're trying to make that better. If we decide it's not worth it to us, it's still going to be contaminated, and it's not going to make that drainage any better. And that's my point tonight, that we're going to make the city, this piece of the city better and less contaminated, and a better piece of the city to the neighbors that live there, or we're not. And we're not, but we're not gonna stuff something down their throats. I'm a Lowell guy, I live in Lowell, I'm proud of living in South Lowell for almost 15 years. I understand their concerns. That whole area, the whole area, but South Lowell does have a higher water table than most. But we would address that through stormwater, as Mr. Hammer pointed out tonight. So I respected their input tonight, but we would make this site a much better site than it was, as it presently is. And that's all I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we're probably at the point, I'm not sure if did you want to say something else?
Yes, I would. My name is Ray Goyette. I live at 7 Clifton Street, in the corner of Billerica Street and Clifton Street, across from 205. I witnessed the 3 test holes dug by Mr. Daly, okay? I could see how deep they were. He had a small track excavator. This man says I'm lying. He wasn't there. I'm not lying. I'm just telling you, he's saying one thing. I'm saying I saw another thing. It has nothing to do with him. If he wants to come and beautify our neighborhood, put some flowers as the street walks in, he's gonna make money on this like everything else, okay?
All right, we're not concerned about who's making money.
He's talking about coming in to beautify our neighborhood. We don't need 3 houses there to beautify our neighborhood. It's a small house there now. It looks fine to me.
Anybody who owns a property certainly wants to be able to do something with their property, so.
Understood, and I understand it's business. We're just, like I said, we've lived there quite a long time. I've been over there 49 years.
Well, I think you've added to the discussion as far as what the conditions are out there, as far as you're concerned, your opinion of the conditions, so.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for that.
One last point that the zoning board and the city brought up that was pointed out, and we didn't bring it up, but, you know, this is an SMF zone, which is on a 33,000 square foot lot. By law, by right, by zoning, we could put up an apartment building, a 3 to 4 story apartment building with 11 units on it, drive under. You're talking about impact by right. We didn't do that. With the less impact, the least impactful development on the site was the three small houses. And the city had addressed that the other day at the zoning board. We didn't even bring it forth. It wasn't one of those things, we're gonna propose this and bring it down to this. It wasn't that's not responsible development. That's not the way we operate. We could have done that. They raised that issue. You guys know you could have done they brought it up. Patrick can weigh in on that, if he wants to. But we didn't do it. That's not what this neighborhood would want. It's not what it deserves. It's not right. And it's not, as a developer in the city of Lowell, it's not something I would feel good about doing. So that's an important part. At the end of the day, through our due diligence process, we're gonna determine if this site if it's worthy enough to clean up and make it better and build these houses, and if it's not, we're not gonna do it. And if we do it, it's gonna be better. It's gonna be a better situation for the city, and most importantly, it's gonna be better for this neighborhood. And that's the last point I make. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think we're at the point here, whether we have enough information. We do have an opportunity to get a second opinion on this, if anyone thinks that would be useful. I am curious about disturbing the soil and perhaps causing further damage to the wetland issues. Anybody else have any comments at this point?
Yeah, I have just one question. So you said that you had Mills City Environmental come out and do an assessment?
That's correct, yes.
And so there should be a report of it?
There were some, I haven't seen a report. There was just some preliminary assessment done.
And so it was
Wasn't
like,
anything alarming, I can tell you that.
so it was by word of mouth, they said it was okay and it wasn't
No, they said
contaminated?
that there were traces of debris mixed in amongst the bottles. I can also say, actually, when we did the test pits, there was no strong odor. The city engineer was there with us doing the test pits. Like I said, there were varying depths. It wasn't like there was mixed debris within the bottles themselves. So it wasn't, like we were digging out a dump. It was clearly just an array of bottles that have been deposited on the property.
Okay.
To what depth?
They're right here, all the depths of the three test hole datas right here.
Of the bottles?
Yeah, and then it says bottles.
One of them was 66 inches.
Yeah.
One of them was 30 inches.
Yeah, I see it.
And one of them was
Yeah.
48 inches.
Thank you.
And was any environmental testing done on chemicals? Or was just physical testing? Do you know?
Just did some initial testing. Didn't find anything that threw up any major alarms for us to take a step back, and that's actually why we continued.
So,
Or what about, did they have a PID reader out there? Were they, anything that would,
Yeah, he does have a PID reader, I know
Okay.
that. But like I said, when we were out there doing the testing, there was not any strong odors or anything alarming. And I have worked for an environmental engineering firm in the past,
Yeah.
so I am cognizant of those type of conditions.
Were you there at the time of the testing?
I was there. Robert Gill was there, the city engineer was there, Mr. Daly was there, there was an operator there, all witnessing these test holes.
so nothing to suggest, in addition to no odor, no visual staining,
That's right.
no what we deem to be asbestos-containing materials,
Yeah, there was
no
no,
lead or heavy metals, cadmium, battery,
What about arsenic?
Listen, I'm not going to profess to tell you what's in a
No,
black piece of coal ash, but what I'm saying to you was there wasn't anything that was a reportable condition in my mind or the city engineer's mind, for that matter, when we were doing the testing. It was, in fact, very loose bottles, varying depths, and then it went into sand. There was no coloration in the water, the standing water at the bottom of the excavation, so.
Well, I would say this, that there's been a number of locations in any urban environment which they would deem to have what's called kind of just typical urban fill, which is distinguished from hazardous materials. And
Which we have a ton in Lowell.
right. And what I would say is that, obviously, if, as I mentioned earlier, is if observations were to change during construction, then the protocol, to Mr. Daly's point, is that the regulations have changed a lot in the last 20 years, is now a release tracking number would be issued with what we would call like the nature and extent, what's in the material, where is it going, what are the receptors, and if those risks pose an unacceptable public health risk, then there's an obligation to clean that up. So, I mean, I'm not hearing anything that runs counter to what current protocol would be, but we also, I can tell you from being in the business, that it's very typical to run into what I would consider to be urban fill, in a city such as Lowell. The challenge is just to make sure we distinguish and confirm that it's truly just urban fill, solid waste, debris versus stuff that poses a concern. And that's why you've retained a licensed site professional, correct?
Correct, and I gotta say, Mr. Lovely, I've dug a lot of holes in the city.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of excavations in the city, and the first thing we do is we sniff the soil.
Right.
Does it smell? And then you start to then, if it does, then you're saying, oh, it obviously has the smell of petroleum or
Right.
some sort of, smell that might be familiar to you, and then you make note of that, and you proceed.
What I'm hearing is this is different than, say, for example, what was found on Fay Street near the school where an environmental cleanup had to be done for high lead in soils, and they did a combination, what was done was a combination of soil removal and soil barrier to prevent any sort of exposure to those high lead soils. As an example.
Yes, like I said earlier, when you go to do the construction, there's a whole pre-assessment that's done by a licensed site professional. The city environmental engineers contacted, and the city has a whole protocol to deal with construction with whatever you might find in the soils. And then they also have inspectors that are there the whole time. And we all know the last thing you want to do is be part of soils that go to the wrong receiving area. So,
So is it true that if you own property and find contamination that you're obligated to clean it up?
It's my understanding it's the originator of it. And if you can't go to the originator, then it's, then it goes to the person who's now owns the property and is willing to take that responsibility to properly dispose of it. But it's my understanding it's always the originator who created the contamination originally.
Well, when it goes back that many years, you probably aren't going to be finding an originator.
I think Mr. Daly put it best. When he goes to do that pre-screening, and if it's determined that it's not advantageous for him to proceed forward, then he's not going to do anything. And that's, might not be the best thing for the neighborhood, but that's going to be the best thing for Mr. Daly.
And putting aside the whole potential contamination issue, I think, I'm not as well-versed as Commissioner Biedron with respect to stormwater management, but I do know enough to say that a 22% reduction is a significant reduction. Moreover, the installation of the oil water separator to reduce, any sort of fines and all that from going into the recharged groundwater is an environmental benefit in and of itself. So I, for one, feel like there's sufficient information for this project to proceed. And if additional information is obtained during initial development of the property, then it can be addressed at that point in time.
Please speak into the microphone.
I was loud enough. 15 years ago, because I haven't been living at the house because I got married, but I can testify that in one place they should check is the top of the driveway to the left. There was blue oozing out of there. I haven't been on the property since. I know when we had the issue at 93, I did talk with Erica, and she did tell me that from time to time, she saw stuff, and she would cover it up so the birds didn't get to it. Because she had a thing for birds on that property. You probably saw it in the paper all the time. But she would cover it up, her and her husband. They kept the property very clean, and anytime they saw that, they would cover it up with dirt and put grass seed over it. So the grass did grow. So, and I think for us as a neighborhood, the two concerns we have is the water issue. And I tried to get a copy of the water management report, but it wasn't available. Maybe if we could take a look at that, and we had more confidence in the contamination, because we all know that land. And having lived through 93, I don't ever want to go through it again, and I don't want my family involved in it. And those are our concerns. I think those are the two concerns. We're not against you building. I've seen the work you've done, but we have to look out for ourselves. And if you were living there, I'm sure you would do the same thing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know about...
Say your name, please.
Dan Goyette, I live at 35 Clifton Street.
Thank you.
The zoning area, are we in a floodplain? Obviously, like, we have to have insurance, flood insurance on our properties,
Then yeah, you're in a floodplain.
right?
If you do.
Yeah, the floodplain is a,
Is that gonna go away?
No.
they're not disturbing the elevations in the area where the floodplain line is.
And they're also not building in the
They're
floodplain.
gonna drain the water away from us so that we won't be in a floodplain no more, right?
No, you'll
No?
always be in the
No.
floodplain's the floodplain.
Oh, I thought they were gonna reduce the,
No, the
Flow of
rainwater will be channeled away, but not,
I thought that's what they meant by helping us out, by getting rid of the water. So all the hot top and everything that's there, when the rain comes down, where it would just normally go into the soil, it will now go where?
It'll still go into the
so
soil.
wherever it's
Through
going.
the hot top?
The two spots, one is in the center driveway where that catch basin is, and then at the driveway where it enters Bill Ricker Street, there's an infiltration trench.
Everything's gonna be funneled to these drains,
Yes.
trenches. All right. So what about testing the ground, lab test, get lab test results, test many areas of the ground, and have lab test results that we all can see, and we're comfortable with that. Right? If you have the soil tested, and it says that we're not in any risk, and we're not gonna get flooded out, then we're not gonna object, I'm sure.
I think it's
This
a
is just
sequencing issue, and I'll let Mr. Daly.
If there's contamination, which, who knows, there could be, I'm gonna clean my area up. If there's contamination, we decide not to proceed, nothing's gonna be done to that contamination, it's still gonna be there, Mr. Goyette. So, what's contaminated is contaminated, what is, if we proceed, is gonna be cleaned up. At the end of the day, you know, again, I'm a sympathizer to the neighborhoods, and as much as they don't probably think that, I am not gonna do this because I can make money. I can make money at a lot of other things that bigger developments are working on. But what I can say to the neighborhood tonight is that the liability on this whole thing sits right here. I'm opening myself up to massive liability, okay, if there's contamination is not properly and appropriately addressed. So I get that. And like I said, part of this second phase is to ensure that if there is contamination there, what the remediation plan is, how much it's going to cost, and then we'll report back. And I think that should be conditioned on this approval. And we will make that decision then. Again, if there's contamination there, we'll just report back, and there's nothing we can do for the neighborhood.
Just for the benefit of the neighborhood, and this is completely speculative, if contamination was discovered and a release tracking number was issued by Mass DEP, that number stays open until the site is addressed.
Correct.
You know, and whether it's Mr. Daly that's required to clean it up, some other party that's required to clean up, Mass DEP taking the lead, or US EPA taking the lead.
Right.
someone would be cleaning it up, and that spill number would remain open until the site is cleaned.
That's correct.
A couple of people have mentioned the, I would like something in writing about the findings that Mill City had. I mean, you know, it's not that I don't believe what you're saying, it's just that we have nothing to base our thinking on if there's nothing in writing.
But I guess my only concern is if they didn't do environmental testing, what they're gonna give you in writing is, what's that? That's up here.
So this next phase,
Yeah.
what we discovered is what we thought might have happened was it was a bottle dump down the street where there was more egregious type dumping, where it was a really significant contamination, where this was more supposedly a bottle dump. Now, that doesn't mean more stuff was put there. There was no regulations then. We'll find that out. So if part of phase 2 of Mill City's process is to really do some significant testing, I've already engaged them. I wanted to get the approval before the board to make that worth the investment, potential investment. So I would be totally open to making that conditional on this approval, that you see the type of contamination and what the remediation plan would be. And I'd make it open to, obviously, it's probably a public document, but I'd let the neighbors see it too, so they know what they're up against, regardless of if we proceed or not.
And just for the benefit of the folks here in the audience, I mean, that is the next step. A phase 1 assessment is basically just a visual observation, looking at records. Phase 2 is where the party actually does some further investigation to get additional information on what's in the ground. And should it indicate that there's contamination, then they would be obligated to do a phase 3 investigation, which gets into much more substantial investigative work, groundwater monitoring wells and things of that nature. But we're not there yet. I think what I'm trying to balance is, one, Commissioner, is just the sequencing. You as a developer, Mr. Daly, to want to proceed ahead and not having this project held up with so much uncertainty while this additional work's being done, recognizing that that's a risk you're taking on as you proceed, that you may get additional information that would, you know, require you to kind of alter course based on the outcome of that information.
And so if we don't get the approval tonight, it's not worth going forward potentially for
Right.
that second phase.
Right.
And there's also, you know, to go to phase 2, we'll actually identify if there is contamination there and what that remediation plan would be and how much would it cost. We'll know. I mean, again, I'm not making any determinations to these neighborhoods or making any assertions that I know 100% it's a perfect site. But if what we're trying to do is make it worth it, because I think it's a really great plan for this neighborhood. I really do, and I think the stormwater issues down there will be much better than they are right now. But we're just asking this board to approve this, conditioned on this MSP.
So I'm going to make a recommendation to my colleagues here to see if, you know, it's something we can think about. You know, I, for one, would be willing to entertain a motion to issue a City of Lowell standard order of conditions to approve this project contingent upon the outcome of the Phase 2 environmental assessment. Should that assessment come back with an indication that there's contamination, that you would come before the board to report to us that findings and what your plans would be moving forward. That would be my recommendation.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion, and,
We haven't actually,
are we gonna close the public hearing?
yeah, we haven't actually closed.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to close the hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I'm gonna make a motion, I'm gonna echo Commissioner Lovely's recommendation that a Mill City report Phase 2 is done. It's submitted to this board. During the soil testing, if we could do the PID reader. If the PID reader doesn't go off, I think you're good. If it does, then I think you need to proceed with some environmental testing. And then there's also some additional conditions that other people mentioned. The 12-inch silt fence, increase that from the 6-inch swaddle to 12. Signs to protect.
At the
no-
50-foot.
The 50-foot. You know, they can be creative environmental protection area, all that lovely stuff. And then I don't know if it is possible to put something in the deed, or maybe even, I'm just like envisioning, maybe the site plan in the deed for that property will show that 50-foot no-build line. I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, we'll put that on the condominium site plan.
Okay, that actually goes in,
Yeah.
that gets recorded.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those placards will be listed there, and there'll be additional verbiage that could be put into the master deed, what those are.
Yeah, that 50, that line could be put in there, just so years, when someone's mowing it, we have a leg to
Well,
stand on.
If you put that in the order of conditions to reference the 50-foot and its purpose, then that'll be caught when the master deed comes through DPD for review, and then that can get put in to the master deed as a secondary measure through the DPD department.
Okay,
Could we reinforce that no disturb area by perhaps saying that any proposal to change anything within that area needs to come before the Conservation Commission? Or is that understood with the words no disturb?
I think it's understood, there shouldn't be any changes, it's no disturb.
Well, it sounds like you can't make any changes. They could actually change something as long as they got permission, as far as cutting dead trees or.
Yeah, or it has to come,
Yeah, the Wetlands Protection Act essentially says that if you have invasive species or some dead trees in the
Do
100-foot
maintenance.
buffer, you can just go to the local conservation agent or to the board to get permission to remove that vegetation as a temporary.
Okay, that's all right. I just didn't want to.
yeah, no, I like the deed thing, because I feel like, you know, we all understand it tonight, and then the next buyers might get it, but the next buyer, it's nice to have that in the deed, on the plan.
So,
Okay, so we have a motion.
and I would second that motion. Just want to confirm, Patrick, you get all those 3 specific
So,
conditions?
I'm just gonna repeat them if that's
Sure.
okay.
Sure.
Motion that Mill City Report Phase 2 is done and submitted to the Lowell Conservation Commission. PID reader goes that there needs to be additional environmental testing
Correct.
completed. A 12-inch silt fence be installed.
It's a swale, right? You want the 6-inch swale to go to a 12-inch?
Fence?
12-inch silt sock.
Yes.
Signage for a 50-foot no disturb area. And then
Can we qualify that, say, every 20 feet, say, along that 50-foot line? Would that be
Maybe,
reasonable?
maybe, that's gonna be ugly. 20 feet? I'd be like 100? 50? Not 20.
If I can add something, I've actually seen this at other commissions. They actually make like a plaque that you put on to a stake and you nail it into the ground, so it's not as ugly as, you know, having signs up everywhere.
A monument in the ground.
Yeah, it's, you know, more aesthetically pleasing.
Something.
Yeah, we've been putting in just a 4x4 pressure-treated post with a placard attached to the post, and we typically put them like one every 50 feet.
Okay, 50 feet's good.
it's a placard on some sort of post showing the 50-foot no disturb zone installed at every 50 feet. And then site plan be submitted to DPD and also recorded. The recorded deed shall show the 50-foot no build zone line
On their deed.
on their deed.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. If there's any more discussion, now's the time. Ready to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you.
you have a?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a request for determination that resulted from an enforcement order at 293 Wentworth Ave, Flavio Di Miranda. Sorry you've had such a long wait tonight. We had a site visit with some members of the board and representatives from the city at the site. And as a result of that site visit, Mr. Di Miranda has installed a silt fence. We talked about what would further the lifting of the enforcement order. Unfortunately, that order will probably stay in place until the site is stabilized, and we talked about how we've kind of missed the window for the season as far as seeding and growing grass, and that will have to take place in the spring. So the silt fence needs to stay in place. I do have some, Mr. Di Miranda has put in a sketch that I think everyone's seen of his backyard with the, there is a shed back there, but as far as I understand, what he wanted to do was just seed the area that was of concern, that where a couple trees had been cut, and there had been Japanese bamboo cut within the, off the property line, within a wetland area. So I did, and Kevin can confirm this with me if he wants, the silt fence should be maintained where it is until the site is stabilized, and that would mean whatever you plant back there as far as grass, ground cover, is taken hold and is not in danger of dying. I have that perhaps no additional material be brought on site, that the wall is going to be reconstructed with available material, and you said
Yes,
that was
that's
your
correct.
plan. That in the future, there'd be no cutting beyond the wall, that the seeding would take place and the soil stabilized in the spring, that landscaping materials not be dumped in that 50-foot area, in other words, any area behind the shed.
Absolutely.
And that planting of trees and shrubs in that area is okay as well,
Oh,
if that's what you wanted to do. So I think what we're here for is an RDA, a request for determination. And I think that, it probably is of concern. It's an area of concern. And I guess I kind of put myself backwards here by saying what I'd like to see in the RDA before we even voted for the RDA, but it's getting to be a long night here. Kevin, you have something to add to that?
There were just some notes here. I was on the site visit, but I do forget, the trees that are here, are those trees the ones that are already there?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, I try to illustrate what I have there and what I'm doing there, so. Also, I have, I made some writing, what I'm proposed to do there. That was always been my original plan to do there. Was to rebuilding the wall there and fill the erosion was building back there, and have, spray with hydro seed over there. So
And we can't do
basically
that
just
until the
replace-
spring.
Exactly. So, just to replace the knotweed, it's grow back there. So anything that grows, nothing grows between those knotweeds. Is just like a break.
It's terrible, I know.
It
yeah.
is. So that's spread fast. So if you make any research about that, they grow 4 inches per day.
I know all about
So this
knotweed.
is, it's a really terrible
tough to
plant
get
to
rid
not
of,
be around any environment, honestly.
Yeah, as an invasive, I think that you could cut that on your own property, but you shouldn't be cutting on the city property or within that area on the wetland.
Okay, I learned my lesson.
So the wall will be your dividing line, so you'll know.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else want to say anything about this particular issue? So I think we need a motion about the RDA.
I just have a question for clarification, I think for Mr. De Miranda. There are wetlands in front of the stone wall, so I think he's wondering if he can remove the Japanese knotweed even though it's in the wetlands on his property, or can it only be restricted to beyond the wall?
Is that okay, Lois, if I have some, maybe back there are trees that can replace the knotweed back there, even if the city property, like, like willows or, something that could maybe just wick the knotweed bamboo.
is
It's
that-
something just, to make a better environment.
Yeah, is that on your proposal? Because, you would want to know.
No, I have, it's not on my proposal, but
No,
I'm
I
just
was-
suggesting here
You would want to
because-
know what you were putting in there. For instance, we wouldn't want something that was equally invasive planted there, like
Burning bush or
whatever it might be, burning bush, or, and I really wouldn't recommend you planting on someone else's property. Something's going to come back there, and
No, that's okay, I'm just proposing.
there are trees there, and it's very likely that trees will grow there, as well as the bamboo.
Yeah, I mean, I just got there, like, I spent mostly the summer there. I did not see nothing else than the knotweed. That's, I saw that. If you guys is more than welcome to come by during the summer to see it, because when the knotweed grows, nothing grows around it or underneath.
Well,
I mean,
that
I'm
isn't
just suggesting. I mean, I'm not trying to.
that isn't invasive, and if it's on your property, I, for one, don't mind if you cut it.
Oh, okay,
But on someone else's property, I would say no.
okay.
Okay, so this is an RDA, and we need
So
to take some action on it.
given the scale and the scope of the work, I'm not hearing anything that would suggest that this project needs to proceed with a notice of intent. So I, for one, would be willing to offer a motion to issue a -3 determination for this project.
Could we
I'll
have some
second that motion.
conditions to guide Mr. De Miranda through the lifting of the emergency order?
Sure, I think what I've heard, so if, I guess that determination will be contingent upon 2 specific things I heard, and others chime in if I missed anything, but one would be, obviously keeping the erosion control measures in place until the site is stabilized, and that likely means sometime later this spring. And then the second thing was, if you're to remove invasives, it's limited to within your property. Did I miss anything?
He had also planned to redo the stone wall. There's like a stone wall there.
Yeah, he wants to rebuild the wall.
So
I think that would
To
help.
rebuild the wall with material from on-site.
That will help
Yeah,
with
basically,
erosion.
I'm just rebuilding because it was existing, but the previous owner did not,
It's kind of
But
But that's on
jagged.
your RDA, correct? It's
Yeah,
on
it
the
is.
RDA?
Yeah.
So it's part of the, it's not a specific condition. I'm just saying that
Okay.
that activity in and of itself
Oh, I'm sorry.
doesn't, wouldn't require, in my opinion, a notice of intent.
No, no, no.
Right.
Oh, no, I wasn't talking about a notice of intent.
No, no.
Ken, you good? Do you, okay, you got the
Yes,
conditions?
all right.
Can a -3 have conditions? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think these conditions, if they're not part of the RDA, they are part of the
Record,
continuing emergency order that
yeah.
will have to remain in place until the grass grows. And you're finished with your work out there.
Yeah, the reason it's the way it is just because, took time to be here, honestly.
Okay, so you have a little time off this winter, and then when you feel that the grass, you've planted the grass and it's doing well, contact the DPD office, and they'll put you on the agenda to come back, or they'll have us go out and take a look at it.
So do we want to
Okay.
continue this, or are we issuing negative?
No, we're issuing a,
So we got to vote on it.
yeah. We have a motion to issue a -3. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and further discussion? I guess not. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now you have officially gone through the process of doing the work you wanted to do, and that's the way you should have come in first, and we could have skipped the whole enforcement order, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
I
for coming back.
apologize for,
Yeah.
to not find out.
To
Yeah,
understand.
What I
no,
have to
that's
do,
fine.
but
That's how you, that's,
Honestly, the first thing I did was asking the neighbors,
yeah,
and
that's,
they said,
yeah, that's
It's all
how
good
you
now.
and
Now
the
you know.
public gets.
Spread the word, baby.
oh,
Yeah.
definitely, I will.
All right.
Have a good
Thank you
night.
so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Happy holidays.
You too, thank you. God bless.
Okay, we have 2 certificates of compliance for the gas company, who's even changed their name since these were, came before us, and one of them's 1989, I think.
1995.
Yeah, so let me just read the numbers. This is Colonial Gas, DEP number 206412. The project location is the Lawrence Street Bridge. A gas main was moved and relocated from one side of the bridge to the other way back when. So I know the city went out, you went out, Patrick, and looked at that, and it was
It was there.
it was there. So can we have a motion on this particular certificate?
I'll make a motion to issue a standard Lowell certificate of compliance.
Okay, motion made,
I'll second it.
seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next is a certificate of compliance request from Boston Gas Company, formerly Keyspan, DEP 206534, project location, various locations along Reese Ave and Doane Street. This order goes back to February of 2003. It's been extended once for 3 years in 2006, so this one is long expired as well. Did you go and look at this one also, Patrick?
So this one we did not, because we had trouble finding the actual hard copy file. We don't.
So that means the pipe was actually buried probably, right? It's out there somewhere.
Suppose so. I did recently send the commission minutes, just because I was trying to dig in and find some more information,
Yeah.
because I didn't have the file, and it was a 12-inch gas main
Yeah.
from 32 Reese Ave to 69 Doane Street.
Yeah, and I think this was one that was installed with very little disturbance as far as some kind of a underground drill type of a thing, if I recall. Yeah.
For the record, my name is Hannah Raditz with Conoco Engineers and Scientists, and unfortunately, we weren't the original permitting company for this, so I can't speak to the work, especially considering we don't have the files. We're simply doing some housekeeping on the part of Boston Gas to try to get these old orders of conditions closed, and when we can, we do the site inspections.
Yeah, our files appreciate that, too. Okay, so I think this could be taken care of right now if we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance.
Seconded by,
Seconded.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I think that's, takes care of the gas companies.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for waiting. Next is a request for determination of applicability by the Camelot Court Condominium 1, care of Sutton Management. The project location is 297 Pawtucket Boulevard. This is a request for installation of 3 park benches in bordering land subject to flooding.
Hi, my name's Rick Stern from Sutton Management Company. I'm here for Camelot Court 1. We were here about a year ago asking permission to remove a rock garden in that courtyard.
Right.
If people remember, it looked like this, and so we eliminated that and grassed it over. And so people are using it now, you know, the kids are using it to play and stuff, so the board would like to ask permission to put 3 park benches around the perimeter of the courtyard,
Yeah.
so the parents could watch their kids and stuff. I know there were some questions about water
All right,
flow through and stuff.
what are they made out of?
Recycled plastic.
And are they attached to the ground or not?
Yeah, they are. They're gonna be in the ground. There are 4 posts on every 2 feet apart, every
Okay.
bench.
They look pretty slim and trim.
Yeah, these are the actual benches that we're gonna install.
My thought when I saw this proposal come in was that you had removed some rocks and things, and perhaps this was an equal exchange to
Right,
have
we-
the park bench come
We haven't done the
back.
calculations, but there were rocks in that rock garden, and we did eliminate those, so
Right.
if you wanna see the picture.
So does anyone have any comments on this proposal?
No.
Okay, can we have a
I think
motion?
on this one, we can issue a -3 determination based on the scale and the scope of the project.
I'll second that.
Okay, made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for coming and letting us
Great.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll enjoy the benches.
Okay, the next is an order of conditions, a request for an extension by Colonial Gas doing business, excuse me, as National Grid. The project number is 206-0666. The project location is Pawtucket Canal, adjacent to 15 to 19 Cayenne Street. This is a remediation activity for some oil contamination in the canal, I believe. Is that right? Can you introduce?
That's correct. Billy Joe Golly, I'm with Anchor QEA, representing National Grid.
Okay. So your work is not done out there, I take it? If you're
That's correct.
extending it.
We did the remediation in 2010. We installed a gunder boom system along the wall and a cap on the bottom of the canal over a portion of it. We've been maintaining it since that time. And we are requesting an extension to continue that maintenance of the system.
Okay. Is that bridge work doing anything as far as impacting your work?
I don't believe it's impacting
No?
work, no.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so I'm not really sure you haven't had one extension yet. I don't see the date here as far as when your original order was.
It was, I believe, in 2013.
Oh, that's.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2010. We had sort of mistakenly requested an extension in 2013, which was granted. But because this was filed when there was the
Yeah, you had that
Economic Development Act, so it extended the
couple
permit
years
deadline.
extension, yeah.
Yeah, so it is longer than the typical 3 years.
Okay, so we're possibly within the time limit, but even if we aren't, I think it's an ongoing thing that we all know what's going on out there.
And you're not deviating from the original plan or
Yeah,
anything?
and
No,
this-
we're just maintaining it. It was originally planned as sort of a temporary solution to it. And so we've been addressing any impacts to the cap. We may see if there's any breakthroughs. We've replaced portions of the gunder boom system and replaced some damage to, fix some damage to that's occurred over time. So just maintaining the system.
Okay, so
I'll make a,
this is for an extension for how long?
I'll make a motion to extend the existing order of conditions for 3 years.
Okay, motion made to extend for 3 years,
Seconded.
seconded by Caitlin. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next, we have a request for determination of applicability from Hancock Associates on behalf of Coalition for Better Acre. Are they here? Ah, there you are. The project location is 555 Merrimack Street.
Really?
This is for the redevelopment of this parcel into a mixed-use building and reconstruction of the parking lot. The project is within 100-foot buffer of the bank of the Western Canal. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing Coalition for a Better Acre. The project is 555 Merrimack Street. It's Lowell House. And the project is to raise the existing one-story building that's in this location and construct a three-story building that'll have a retail component that fronts on Merrimack Street and 27 units on the first floor, second floor, and third floor. Revitalization or reconstruction of the parking lot from Merrimack Street to Moody Street. That will include the installation of a new drainage system, new stormwater system, fully compliant with DEP stormwater standards. That'll include a storm tech system with an isolator road treatment device embedded into it. So we'll go from essentially no treatment, attenuation, or recharge to hitting all three marks. The project results in a net decrease of impervious on site by 1,800 square feet through the introduction of some landscaping that currently doesn't exist out there. So it's a net positive. We do have a landscaping plan that introduces some landscaping for buffering, screening, and beautification. The one thing that we haven't worked out yet is the Canal Walk Park improvements. There is an easement through here, and that is under the auspices of the National Park System. And currently, under the Tiger Grant for the reconstruction of a lot of the canal bridges, the city's going to be occupying that area for 5 years as a construction staging area. So there's really no impetus on national parks to talk about that until it really becomes closer to when we can do it. But that will just include beautification or enhancement of the existing Canal Walk Park. That'll just be either replacement of the existing trees and repair or replacement of some of the hardscape that's there. So as far as your commission, we have the canal wall, which essentially is the limit of the resource area. And we're working within the buffer of that. There's no impact to the resource area at all. The bordering land subject to flooding is contained within the canal itself. It doesn't spill the canal at all, so we don't have any BLSF work even if we did, we're not changing any grades. So it's a full-blown, it's a redevelopment project in that we are decreasing the amount of impervious, but we're not taking any credit for that by putting in the comprehensive stormwater management system. That's been vetted through engineering. We've met several occasions with Mr. Stewart, and we've made a couple of changes in accordance with his recommendations. We were at planning board last week, in which we got a unanimous approval for the project. Timeline on it isn't certain, because there's funding similar to all of the coalition's projects. They'll go for rounds of funding, and hopefully it'll happen as soon as possible, because it really is going to be a great enhancement to the neighborhood, and in full vision of the whole Upper Merrimack Street revitalization that's been going on. So we're requesting a -3 determination.
Could you repeat the status of that strip along the canal?
It's actually used to be Hanover Street, and there's a sewer and water main in there, and there's a sewer and water easement, but then there's also an easement that National Parks has that flanks each side of the canal through this area.
But is it part of this particular lot?
It is part of the lot. So it's encumbered by multiple easements with the control of National Parks and the city for the utilities in there. So we're not building on it, we can't build on it, but certainly once it's opened and revitalized, it'll be not only there for the enjoyment of the citizens of the city, but also for the new residents.
Okay, and it's not going to be used for anything during construction, or did I hear you say it was a staging area?
There's a Tiger Grant project in the city to work on some of the bridges, I believe. And they've negotiated with Lowell House prior to Coalition getting involved, the use of this strip of land for a staging area for that project. So they're going to fence it off, and we're not even going to have access to it for construction, which will make our construction a little tenuous to build a building. So my only point there was we're not going to also have access to it for 5 years to do any of the enhancements, but Coalition is committed to be a principal player in those canal walk improvements.
Okay, so, all right, that was the only area of concern for me, and I thought it was far enough from your building that you probably wouldn't be intruding on any of it anyway, as far as your construction. But now I hear the bridge people are going to be in there. So.
I'm not sure where their status is as far as filing with your.
This is what, the 4 or 5 canal replace bridges?
Isn't it 7?
Yeah, there's
Or whatever.
Yeah.
There's like 4 or 5 total replacements and 3 enhancements. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 5 years.
Yeah.
So.
But this application, it doesn't include the building itself, right? Because that's to be determined. It's just simply for the enhancement of the, of the stormwater management for parking.
No, it's for the building.
The building.
It's for the
you're
whole thing.
tearing down a building.
If you look, the building's different. It's like a different shape. So it was like that, now it's gonna be like.
It's a 1-story building now, and it's
Got
going to be a 3-story building.
Okay. My only concern was just any activity within, it must be a 20-foot wide strip there along the canal,
It's actually 40.
40, okay.
Yeah, there'll be a fence there, and we won't have any activity. So our construction activity is going to have to be,
Yeah,
out on this part of the lot.
so I don't really see an impact.
I just have one question. The Moody Street side, that's just a temporary entrance for construction? And then
No,
it'll,
that'll be a full functioning entrance.
okay, so like fire trucks will be able to.
Fire trucks, trash trucks, and the residents will be able to
Okay,
circle through.
because right now it's not accessible, is it? There's not a throughway? Okay. Okay.
It's just rarely used because Moody Street's kind of dead end at that point.
Yeah. All right.
Any more any more questions from the board?
Nope, I think it's a good project. I'm gonna make a motion to issue a -3 determination on this.
I'll second that.
Motion made, seconded for a -3. Any further discussion? Kevin?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you in a while. You haven't been doing projects in Lowell?
I can take that.
Yeah. Hey, good to see you.
Oh, that's for no cities now.
Full time?
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a while.
Have an emergency vehicle, like,
I got a bunch of the guys that do
all that.
down handy, and we'll get together together Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It's right along the water.
Crazy. We're all getting older, man.
Side off of it because.
My daughter just turned 21.
I just got the back up on Monday. I'm like, he's like, why did I just get up? He's like,
You see, Ames Hall's been replaced now too, Joe.
I'm like, I'm out of work again?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna, kind of,
Hey, take care. Good seeing you.
Okay, we actually have one more thing on our agenda that you maybe didn't know about. This is a request that came in. I guess there was quite a bit of back and forth here between the DPD and the developer. But what has precipitated this request, it's just for one unit at the, this is actually an error, it's 1975 Middlesex Street. The Mill City condominiums, DEP number 2060582. So I think the project is fairly close to completion, but we're not dealing with the project as a whole tonight. It's one unit that's apparently up near Middlesex Street, so it's not in or near the resource area, and it's a title transfer, something that can't go forward without releasing this one unit. I know we've done this on single-family, single homes in subdivisions, but I don't know if we've ever done it for a condo project. But I don't see any problem with releasing this one unit, just to sort of a administrative thing, rather than, and then we will get the full proposal fairly soon, Patrick. They're coming in for a certificate
Yeah,
of
I believe compliance. so. They should be in the next couple months.
Okay. So I think this unit is, I saw a red dot on something that I looked at, is up near the M in Middlesex Street on this.
Yes. So looking at the plan, I believe it's this building right here, closest
Okay.
to Middlesex Street. So,
Number 16?
yes.
Okay, so I don't see a problem with helping out this particular individual by releasing this one unit, and then they're going to formally submit this, or have they done so?
They have not yet, but they will be.
Okay.
How do we handle that administratively? Do you issue an actual formal partial?
On the COC form, there's actually a section that's a partial
Okay.
COC.
All right, I offer a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance at the request of the
It's
applicant
Unit 44. I
for,
think it's Unit 44, isn't it?
Yep, Unit 44.
all right, for Unit 44 of 1975 Merrimack Street.
It's Middlesex Street.
Excuse me.
We'll get there, Bill.
Get there. Sorry, it's getting long.
when are you guys gonna stick it?
I'll second.
Okay, motion to issue the partial certificate for the Unit 44 at 1975 Middlesex Street.
And it's been,
Made and seconded?
Yep.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anything else, Patrick?
National Grid.
Just two more things, yep. There's, last Friday, we received some correspondence from National Grid about just some work, some vegetative spraying that they'll be doing along the Lowell connector. They did submit a plan showing the wetland areas. I verified
We'll
with their own.
just file that with the rest of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got another today, similar work, doing the same thing, maintenance of utilities.
We really have very little control over those.
Duly noted.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you and good night.
Right.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.